Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and welcome to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and I'm excited to be here with you today for this very, very important topic. This is more serious and somber than last week.
Well, yeah, it is a serious and somber topic, but, serious and somber topics also have their own joy and light to them. And I think I would like to give a reframe on this topic as we talk together, because we're going to be talking about what in shamanism we call a psychopomp work. And so, really briefly, because this is a huge topic in shamanism, uh, one of the biggest healing methods in shamanism is what we call psychopomp work. And so here we are, we're living our lives, and then it's just time for us to go. Death and birth is just part of life. And when everything's going, quote, right, and I know that in spiritual work, we believe that everything is always going right. But sometimes things do need help in going right and getting into the flow. And so there's a true understanding in shamanism that when we die, we just go to the transcendent realms. We have a beautiful experience. We're typically met by ancestors, loved ones, old friends, old lovers, cats, dogs, and we're escorted, and it's beautiful. But there are circumstances where what happens is a soul gets stuck here. It doesn't transcend. And typically those experiences, and in shamanism, you can't label anything. So you have to journey on every single situation uniquely. I'm just kind of giving the big picture. What can happen is a soul doesn't even know it died, like in an accident, a plane crash, a war, and it's still walking around wondering where all the ambulances are. And there's people who've been murdered, people who had committed suicide and got confused. There's so many things that can happen in shamanism. A person doesn't want to leave their loved one, and so they stay here in the middle world. They don't go to the transcendent realities. But the truth of the matter is, the middle world is Earth school. It's only for people who are alive. Once you're dead, you have no role here. There's no learning here for you when you're a spirit. And so typically, naturally, people cross over on their own, but there are circumstances where a shaman has to come in and actually do psychotherapy work on the spirit that's here. To help it understand that it did die, that it does need to leave, and help to guide it back home. It's a long process, a beautiful process, and it's called psychopomp work. It's about crossing souls over. Psychopomp, Hermes was the great psychopomp, bringing the dead from here over to the other side. And so what happens if we don't do psychopomp work with really big issues going on, like how many people died from the COVID, how many people have been dying in recent wars, how many people are dying from the environment, how many people are dying from starvation, suicide, the list goes on. How many wandering souls do we have here walking around the earth right now who need help? And we'll keep talking about this, but definitely want to hear from Renee, because there are consequences when we have a lot of stuck souls roaming the middle world.
Yeah, a prime example for me with that was when the planes hit the towers, and so many people died, like so instantly and so unexpectedly. And there was like groups of shamanic practitioners doing psychopomp work for them. And there was this ceremony that I participated in, and it was the craziest thing because we were all drumming all over the world, and all of a sudden it was like it just was done. And it was like, but it was like, it was just it felt like these big ships in the harbor with people just, looking for that way home and they just came in droves. And it was really a powerful, and I learned to do that with Hank Wesselman when we were looking around at the Etruscan tomb sites and all of the carnage that had been done in Italy. And there was still, even a long time later, a lot of souls that were still there stuck. And so I think you're right, Sandra, that right now we're in a time when, we've had a lot of deaths in the last couple of years, like way more. The trend is, if we continue on this trend, that we're going to reverse the numbers on the planet. But that there's been children going and elderly going, and I would imagine there's a lot of confusion and a lot of people not knowing how to find their way home.
Yeah, and it could be, and it might not be. I don't want people to panic. Oh my God, what happened to
Right.
my loved one? If you do want to know, I have a website, shamanicteachers.com, and everybody's really well trained in psychopomp work on that site, and they can check on your relative for you. I actually have agreements with people where they put me in their will, and the only thing they put is, please write to Sandra Ingerman at the time of my death, and she will know what to do, period. Nervous. But what happens is, if we have a lot of soul loss, if we're disempowered, if we're not filled with our light, with our soul, where we're filled with so much fear and anxiety and hate and division, what happens is, and there's an opening in us, there's an illness in us. We should be filled with our own soul. We should be filled with our own light. And so as these spirits are kind of walking around, they're wandering. Ghosts are a perfect example of this. When people see ghosts in their house, a shaman would come in and psychopomp them. Psychopomp means the leader of souls. Bars are a really good place where people pick up spirits. Hospitals are a place where people pick up spirits. So the issue is, we don't want a lot of wandering souls here. And one of the things that I had to start learning about was, because I've been teaching psychopomp work since the early 1980s, and we went over to Vietnam, we went over to the camps. We would do all this psychopomp work for people that we knew. Any ceremony that we did in my workshops, somebody had to know somebody who died in that tragedy. So that's how we kind of worked with it, so that we weren't just reading obituaries and the same people. And we really found that group work was so important because, like, we were on a boat in the Vietnam War, and there were so many Navy guys who needed help. We were being covered by them, and so we really needed a lot of help from our helping spirits. And so what that taught me was that in big situations like we're dealing with now, unless you're dealing with one loved one, one family member, it's about working with groups, because otherwise you can get hurt. And I've watched Renee Tux calls me now customer service. I was customer service for an organization, and I can't tell you how many people got possessed doing big psychopomp ceremonies for groups of people by themselves, and it was one of the things we had to deal with. So it's a time on the planet for people to come together to do honoring ceremonies for the dead, and to release them, and to work in groups, of communities, because we must have a clean middle world. The energy in the middle world must be clean. Otherwise, we're going to be affected by all this other energy. So I think it's a really important topic for at this time. And I know that there's a lot of shamanic practitioners that listen to this show. And I think it's important for you to get your groups together and to not maybe do the work, but journey on the topic. And see the relevance of the topic. And then if you have the training, do the work. And if you don't have the training, call in somebody from my website or from somewhere that you know, and do the work.
Yeah, I agree. And I definitely agree. You know, I know the quality of the shamanic teachers. And so that's a lot of times when people ask for help in the Shamans Cave group, and other people start putting all these names, and, you know, and then people, even I am messaged somebody who I kind of blocked the other day. It's like, no, we're asking on a general thing, but it's not my specialty per se, but my first experience, like so many of my shamanic experiences, was one night, somebody I knew was dying. And I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but I put him in a canoe and I paddled him, and we were met by a spirit, and he was suffering, and it just happened spontaneously in the middle of the night that this happened, and I didn't even know what it was for years.
Right.
And so that might happen to you as well if you're called and you don't know what just happened, like, you know, a lot of times with our pets and things like that. But, you know, what's good to know about, if that does happen to you, is that there is a site like the Shamanic Teachers where you can go and people are actually trained to have that conversation with you, instead of around, you know, the holiday dinner table where people look at you like, you know, you've lost your mind. And know that's a real and ever-present situation on this earth plane, especially right now, where weather events and other things are disrupting life as we know it.
Absolutely. No, that's really perfectly said, Renee. And I just want to let people know that Hank Wesselman and I did write a book together called Awakening to the Spirit World. And the idea for the book came from me, in that I wanted to show the world that shamanic teachers could come together and write a book together and do it in a good way, love each other while we did it. So there were 5 of us who contributed to the book, and we have a wonderful chapter on working with death. And so I'd like to just encourage you, if you're interested. Alberto Violdi wrote on death, Hank wrote on death, I wrote on death, Carol Proudfoot wrote, Edgar wrote on death. It's really a beautiful chapter. So if you want more information, I'd like to send you there.
Oh yeah, I can put the link in the Shaman's Cave too. You know, there's that would probably be a good place too, so people could, you know, is it still available?
Oh yeah, it's doing great.
Oh, good. No, yeah, so we can do that for sure. You know, it's always nice if you support our books. You know, Winds of Spirit. Winds of Spirit was #1 for a week or two, and that was very exciting. It got me pumped up to write the next book.
That's great.
So I guess to end on a happier note, make sure that you like us over at the Shaman's Cave. Have you said everything you want to say about this, or is there?
No, yeah, I just think it's a very important topic right now, and it's a topic we should be educated on. If you're interested in shamanism, and we assume that essentially this is shaman's cave.
Right. And it's, you know, the one final thing I will say on it, one of the best classes I ever took in my shamanic training was on death and dying.
Mhm.
And, you know, it certainly is a good thing to think about, that you can actually get yourself balanced and ready to go. And you know, the shamans in Peru used to say, so that your last exhale was the one that took you back to source, that took you back to spirit, instead of, you know, needing to wander around on this planet. So, you know, both Sandra and I always recommend that you do your personal work, and that you, and if you do have somebody who's dying, you could do a lot of work with them before they go, so you don't have to do, you know, a spirit canoe once they leave.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. So there is really important work for us to do on the planet right now, but we need to, like this kind of work, as I shared, it's got to be done in community. It's got to be done in community. So that's another message we want to put out there. Find your communities and keep doing your personal work, and keep helping what's happening in the unseen and seen realms. And we just keep walking forward together. So blessings, everyone.
Thank you.